What does the Bible say about Baal? What does the Bible say about Baal? The Bible mentions Baal numerous times, primarily in the Old Testament. Baal was the chief Canaanite god, who was believed to be the ruler of the heavens and a fertility god. He was also associated with storms and rain, as well as with the underworld and the dead. In the Bible, Baal is spoken of in a negative light, as an idol and a false god, and is associated with idolatry and paganism. The Bible speaks of the destruction of Baal's temples and the idols associated with him. The Lord calls for the worship of him and his idols to be uprooted and destroyed, and for the people to turn away from his false practices. The Bible also calls for the eradication of all that is associated with Baal, and for the Lord's people to remain faithful to him. What does the Bible say about Baal? The Bible is full of references to Baal, a powerful figure in ancient religions of the Near East. Baal was a fertility god, worshipped by many cultures in the Middle East and North Africa. Baal was a powerful figure in the Old Testament, where he was often mentioned in conjunction with other false gods at the time. In the Bible, Baal is often portrayed as the enemy of God, and those who worshipped him were condemned. In this article, we will explore what the Bible says about Baal, from his origin and history to his worship and consequences. History of the god Baal in the Bible. Baal is an ancient Semitic god of fertility, associated with rain, agricultural productivity, and other aspects of nature. Baal was worshipped throughout the ancient Near East, in cultures such as the Canaanites, Phoenicians, and the early Israelites. In the Bible, Baal is often referred to as the Lord of the earth and is associated with agricultural fertility, storms, and thunder. The history of the god Baal is an ancient and mysterious one. Referred to in Scripture, Baal was a popular deity worshipped throughout the Middle East in antiquity. For many years, his worshippers were devoted to him and believed he was the god of fertility, rain, and storms. But what does the Bible say about Baal? Let's explore the history of Baal and the Bible's references to this mysterious deity. Associated names of Baal in antiquity. The god Baal was known by many names. His primary title was Baal, which is derived from the Semitic word Baal, meaning master. He was also called Baal Peor, Baal Zebub, and Baal Berith. While these names all refer to the same god, they each have unique meanings that reflect different aspects of his character. Baal Peor was the god of fertility and was often associated with the worship of idols. Baal Zebub was the god of flies, and was believed to be a patron of necromancy. Baal Berith was a god of oaths, and he was believed to be a god of war. List of forms of Baal. Baal Zebub, or Beelzebub, also known as the Lord of the Flies. Baal Zebub is an ancient Canaanite deity associated with the underworld and worshipped by the Philistines. He was often invoked in magical rituals and was believed to have power over disease and plagues. Baal Hammon, this was the chief god of the Phoenician pantheon, worshipped in the form of a bull. He was associated with fertility, abundance, and the power of the sun. Baal Melkart, this was a form of Baal worshipped in Tyre and Sidon, primarily by the Phoenicians. He was associated with the sea, fertility, and war. Baal Berith, this was a Canaanite god worshipped in the form of a bull. He was associated with the underworld and was believed to have power over the dead. Baal Peor, this was a Moabite god associated with fertility and sensuality. He was worshipped in the form of a bull, and his cult was seen as a threat by the Hebrews. Baal Hadad, this was a storm god worshipped in the form of a bull. He was associated with rain, thunder, and lightning, and was seen as a protector of justice. Baal Shemesh, this was a sun god worshipped in the form of a bull. He was associated with healing and fertility, and was seen as a protector of crops. Baal Shammam, this was a moon god worshipped in the form of a bull. He was associated with the night, and was seen as a protector of travelers. Attributes of Baal. The god Baal was associated with many different attributes. As the god of fertility, he was believed to be responsible for the fertility of the land and the abundance of crops. He was also a god of rain and storms, and was thought to bring heavy rains to his worshippers in times of need. In addition to his links to fertility, rain, and storms, Baal was also associated with war. He was thought to be a god of destruction and was believed to be able to bring destruction and chaos upon his enemies. As a result, he was often invoked by warriors to gain victory in battle. List of types of altars, sacrifices. Human sacrifices of Baal. Stone altar. A stone altar is a type of altar used for religious purposes that is made from rock. It is usually found in a temple or other religious building and is used to make offerings or sacrifices to the deity of choice. The stone altar is usually in a raised position and is sometimes surrounded by a fence or wall to protect it. Wooden altar. A wooden altar is a type of altar used for religious purposes that is made from wood. It is usually found in a temple or other religious building and is used to make offerings or sacrifices to the deity of choice. The wooden altar is usually in a raised position and is sometimes surrounded by a fence or wall to protect it. Animal sacrifice. Animal sacrifice is a type of sacrifice in which an animal is offered as a sacrifice to a deity. This type of sacrifice is common in many religions, including the ancient religions of the Mediterranean such as Baal worship. The animal offered in sacrifice could be anything from a goat or sheep to an ox or a bird. Vegetable sacrifice. Vegetable sacrifice is a type of sacrifice in which vegetables are offered as a sacrifice to a deity. This type of sacrifice is common in many religions, including the ancient religions of the Mediterranean such as Baal worship. The vegetables offered in sacrifice could be anything from grains and fruits to vegetables such as cucumbers and onions. Human sacrifice. Human sacrifice is a type of sacrifice in which a human is offered as a sacrifice to a deity. This type of sacrifice was practiced by the ancient Canaanite religion of Baal worship and was seen as a way to appease the gods. Human sacrifice was often seen as a way of appeasing the gods and gaining favor with them. Temples of Baal. The worship of Baal was a popular and widespread practice during the Bronze Age. Many temples were built throughout the Middle East in honor of this deity. The most famous of these temples was the Temple of Baal at Palmyra, Syria, which was destroyed by the Romans in the 3rd century AD. The worship of Baal was also practiced among the ancient Israelites. While the worship of Baal was officially forbidden by the Torah, some Jews still practiced his worship in secret. This practice was eventually abandoned by the Jews in favor of monotheism. The history of the god Baal is a fascinating one. He was a popular deity in the Middle East for centuries, and his worshippers believed in his power to bring fertility, rain, storms, and destruction. While his worship has long since been abandoned, the memory of Baal still lives on in the Bible and the ruins of the temples built in his honor. When is Baal mentioned in the Bible? Baal is mentioned numerous times in the Bible, from Genesis to the prophets. Some of the most prominent references to Baal can be found in the book of Judges, where the Israelites are warned about worshipping false idols and the consequences of this practice. Other references to Baal can be found in the books of Kings, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. In the Bible, Baal is most prominently mentioned in the books of the Old Testament. Baal is mentioned in the books of Judges, Kings, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Elijah was a prophet of the Lord who lived during the time of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel in Israel. He is best known for his confrontation with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. He challenged them to a contest to prove whose God was the true God. After he called down fire from heaven and defeated the prophets of Baal, Elijah was regarded as the greatest prophet of his time. Elisha was the successor of Elijah and the greatest prophet of his time. He was the most active prophet of his time in opposing Baal worship and idolatry. He performed numerous miracles, including the healing of Naaman's leprosy and the raising of the Shunammite boy from the dead. Jeremiah was a prophet of the Lord during the time of King Zedekiah in Judah. He was known for his opposition to idolatry, specifically of Baal. He warned the people of Judah of the impending destruction of Jerusalem and its temple if they did not repent of their idolatry. Isaiah was a prophet of the Lord in the time of King Hezekiah in Judah. He preached against the idolatry of the people, including the worship of Baal. He declared that God was the only true God and that only he could save the people from their sins. Amos was a shepherd who was called by the Lord to be a prophet during the time of Jeroboam II in Israel. He preached against the idolatry of the people, including the worship of Baal. He warned the people of the consequences of their idolatry, which would eventually lead to the destruction of their nation. Hosea was a prophet of the Lord in the time of King Jeroboam II in Israel. He preached against the idolatry of the people, including the worship of Baal. He warned the people of their impending destruction if they did not turn back to the Lord. Micah was a prophet of the Lord in the time of King Hezekiah in Judah. He preached against the idolatry of the people, including the worship of Baal. He declared that the Lord was the only true God and that only he could save the people from their sins. Obadiah was a prophet of the Lord in the time of King Ahab in Israel. He preached against the idolatry of the people, including the worship of Baal. He warned the people of the impending destruction of their nation if they did not turn back to the Lord. List of Hebrew kings that drifted into Baal worship. Ahab, 874 to 853 BC. Ahab was the 7th king of the northern kingdom of Israel and reigned for 22 years. He was the son of King Omri and married Jezebel of Sidon. He was known for leading the nation into Baal worship, as he allowed the worship of the Canaanite god to spread throughout the kingdom. Jehoram, 849 to 842 BC. Jehoram was the son of Ahab and succeeded him as the 8th king of Israel. He continued the Baal worship and led a large-scale campaign to promote it. He was assassinated by the leader of a rebellion against his rule. Ahaziah, 841 to 840 BC. Ahaziah was the son of Jehoram and became the 9th king of Israel. He followed his father's path of Baal worship, and was the last king of the Omrides dynasty. Yehoash, 798 to 782 BC. Yehoash was the 13th king of Israel and succeeded his father. Jehoahaz. He was known for promoting Baal worship and was responsible for the introduction of pagan idols and rituals into the kingdom. Jehoahaz, 814 to 798 BC. Jehoahaz was the 11th king of Israel. He was the son of Jehu and succeeded his father as king. He was known for his devotion to Baal worship and was the last of the kings of Israel to practice it. Jeroboam II, 793 to 753 BC. Jeroboam II was the 14th king of Israel and the grandson of Jehu. He was known for his commitment to Baal worship and was responsible for the spread of the religion throughout Israel. Menahem, 753 to 737 BC. Menahem was the 15th king of Israel and the son of Jeroboam II. He was known for introducing pagan rituals and idols into the kingdom and was the last king of Israel to practice Baal worship. What sacrifices are associated with Baal in the Bible? In the Bible, Baal is associated with animal sacrifices, which were offered to him as a way of honoring and appeasing him. The Israelites, in particular, were warned against offering sacrifices to Baal in their worship of him. In the book of Judges, the Israelites are warned that sacrificing to Baal will bring destruction and death. What types of Baal worship are associated with Baal in the Bible? In the Bible, the worship of Baal is associated with fertility cults, divination, and other forms of idolatry. In the Old Testament, the Israelites are warned against worshiping Baal and other false gods. In the book of Kings, it is mentioned that the Israelites were engaging in idolatry and worshiping Baal.